Hello and welcome to Rock Your Block. I'm your host and producer, Tia Young. Today we are celebrating Black History Month with our special guest, who is a descendant of Charles and Elizabeth Tenner of the historical landmark known as Tenner Hill in Falls Church, Virginia. Tenner Hill is over 100 years old and is also known as Black Falls Church. Our special guest will give us a history lesson on some of the original founders of Tenner Hill and share some of the struggles and pain inflicted upon his family and other Black families who fought to maintain their land, their homes, and their families. Please welcome Mr. George Tenner, Jr. to Rock Your Block. Hi, George. How are you today?
Just fine, thank you.
Good.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time out to be here with us today.
Yes.
Now, before we get into the discussion about the legacy on Tenner Hill, tell us a little bit about George and your family and some of the roles that you play in keeping the legacy alive.
Okay. Well, I have been a helper all my life. I grew up in a four-room house early on with my mom, my dad, and three siblings. Needless to say, space was something that we didn't have a lot of. Our family was blessed to have relatives living on the same street. Blessed even more, my great aunt allowed us to move into a 6-bedroom house on the main street of Tenner Hill. Our house was always about love, caring for each other, surrounded by a neighboring community of family. I attended Fairfax Public Elementary Schools, which at the time were all African-American students from the surrounding neighborhoods. Once I entered the 7th grade, schools were integrated. And so after graduation from Falls Church High School, I attended Virginia State College, studying health and physical education. In 1972, I started my 40-year career with Arlington County Wastewater Treatment Facility. Prior to my retirement in 2011, my wife and I were able to build a house, so let me call her name, Velma. We were able to build a house in the same location of the 4-room house that I spent my early childhood in. And so these days of retirement, it is allowing me to even more serve my church, my family, and my neighborhood.
Very good. Now, you mentioned that you are a descendant of Charles and Elizabeth Tenner, and that, like you said earlier, you live in Tenner Hill, or on Tenner Hill.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about the generation preceding you.
Okay. Well, African-American life in Falls Church predates the 1700s. Enslaved and free African-Americans lived, worked too often as enslaved labor. They struggled and prospered for generations before the Civil War. However, the Tenner Hill community began right after the Civil War when Charles and Mary Tenner purchased land and built a home that is recognized by a marker, number 20, of Historical Register by the Preservation of History and Culture, City of Falls Church, Virginia. Other land purchased on Tenner Hill by Charles and Mary was divided among his 9 children. Joseph Tenner was the 2nd generation. Joseph, who was noteworthy for working with Dr. E.B. Henderson in forming the first rural chapter of the NAACP. The 3rd generation included my father, George Tenner Sr., who was instrumental in the maintaining of the legacy of our forefathers and passed the mantle on to the 4th generation, which is me, my sisters and my brothers, and we are carrying the Tenner Hill legacy.
So that means that each of you have roles that you have played down through the years. So did you start this when you were like a teenager, or did it not happen until you got to be over 21?
No, as a child, our mom and our father made us children who were able to work in the house and able to do things around the neighborhood. And I can say this, that anytime we stepped out of hand, our neighbors corrected us, just like our parents did.
I remember those days too as well.
They kept us straight, and it kept us focused on what is at hand, serving and helping each other.
Right, right. Those are good traits. Now, you said the 17th century. Is that how long the Tenor family has been a part of the Falls Church community?
Yes.
Okay. I was doing a little bit of research. I didn't get a chance to do as much as I would have liked to have done. But I saw the word tribes mentioned a lot. So does that mean that there were Indians?
There were
people
Native Indians as there as
right,
well.
Native Indians that were here as well. Wow, that's interesting. So the next question I have is that now we understand that Tenor Hill is a historical site. Where exactly is Tenor Hill located, and what is the significance of the historical site?
Okay. The Tenor Hill community began right after the Civil War, when Charles and Mary Tenor purchased the land and divided again among their 9 children. The Tenors, outstanding craftsmen, I was told. I didn't pick up that trade. They were skilled in stonemasons, and in the 19th century, created a solid and thriving community, which remarkably continues today. The Tenor Hill neighborhood is a noteworthy arrangement of impressive homes dating from the late 19th and early 20th centuries, owned and occupied primarily by the Tenor descendants. In the late 1800s, my great uncle, Joseph, and his wife, Elizabeth Tenor, brought land in Falls Church. I don't want to say brought the land. They built a home on the land that the father gave them. Okay. And the land has been known as Tenor Hill ever since. Tenor Hill is a rise of land on the south central border of the city of Falls Church with Fairfax County. Let's see. In the late 1800s into the 1920s, people who were enslaved on the Delaney plantation quarried from the site. The abandoned quarry is now paved on top of the hill, and at its base is the site of the Budget Motel and Vietnamese karaoke restaurant along Washington Street in Falls Church, Virginia. Close examination of the undeveloped site of the hill reveals a portion of the original vein of rocks. The Tenors quarried the rock and cut it into blocks. They built buildings and foundations of homes from the granite. The 1922, for example, the Falls Church Bank and the Texaco station at the corners of Broad and Washington Streets were excellent examples. Unfortunately, both were demolished in the 1970s. The only remaining work of the Tenors is in building foundations of fireplaces, porches, and chimneys of homes in and around Falls Church.
So did your family, or I know the Henderson family has been a big part of Tenor Hill.
Yes.
Did you purchase the land from the slave owner?
Yes,
or is
yes.
that, and so, well, that was very interesting, because a lot of times you couldn't do that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I wasn't queried about all of that situation, but I know that my ancestors years on were slave owners, and that Charles Tenor petitioned his slave owner, the slave owner of the Delaney's, and he gave him land. I guess because he was a good person, I guess because he worked hard, I'm not sure. Right. But that's pretty much all the information that I have.
How did Tenor Hill impact your life as a child and as you grew up to be a man? Okay.
In 1915, in the home of Joseph and Elizabeth Tenor, Dr. E.B. Henderson, Joseph Tenor, and 7 African-American leaders of the Falls Church community met to plan how they could defeat a proposed ordinance that would segregate Falls Church, forcing all African-American families to live in a small, designated area of town.
So wait a minute. They were going to take part of the land and just give you.
Yeah, but you're right. Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. All right.
But before I get there, with my explanation, there is a line that runs pretty much half of Tenor Hill, which divides Falls Church City in Fairfax County. But let me finish explaining. Let me see. Confronted with this grave injustice, endangering their community and their right to choose where they live, the men met to plan their resistance. They organized, they strategized, and they reached out to others. Their nonviolent efforts worked. The ordinance that would have created a segregated black community was never implemented. Those 9 men, they are heroes for us right now.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That is very interesting. Talk a little bit about how Falls Church, the system has this, how has the system changed over the past 100 years in helping to maintain Tenor Hill as a historical landmark, or has that been hard to even do during the 100-year period?
Yeah.
And you know, I'm curious about, are there grants, because you do have the Tenor Hill Foundation, and are grants and other financial sources available to help you maintain that historical preservation?
Okay, of course I wasn't here in 1915, but I do recognize that the Tenor Hill is a vital part of the Falls Church community. Because of the courage of Joseph Tenor and Dr. E.B. Henderson, the force behind the fight that brought equal justice to the community and many other leaders in the community whose names are posted on the memorial walkway and the monument as well at the Tenor, which is called the Tenor Hill Heritage Site and Arch Memorial. I do encourage all to take a look at the Tenor Hill Heritage Foundation's website for additional information on community participation and the programs. It's tenorhill.org. For me personally, I am proud to be an heir of Joseph Tenor, one of several men who fought for equal justice for the Tenor Hill community. I am also proud to continue the legacy of life as a Tenor, living on the Hill. I say this in recognition of the great work that has been done and continues to tell the story of our African American struggle and history through the Tenor Hill Heritage Foundation website and program events. I have the distinct pleasure of also living the legacy as a resident of the Tenor Hill for most of my life, along with my siblings and other family members.
Are you in the same house that you were raised in, or?
No.
Okay.
Remember, at the beginning of my segment,
you
I
mentioned,
said,
right.
Yes.
Okay.
We lived in a 4-bedroom house. I mean, a 4-room house.
Okay.
On the same spot that I built my new house on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's good. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I stopped you, so.
Okay. Okay, the land for the Arch Memorial was donated by the City of Falls Church and the Saab International Car Dealership. The majority of the funding came from a grant through Delegate Bob Hall at the time and the Commonwealth of Virginia. The remaining funds came from Dominion Power, the Willenberg Foundation, and the Honorable H. Robert Morrison. A film by Bob Bernay about Tenor Hill and a Harambe celebration helped with the remaining raised funds from throughout the local African American and general population. Nova Parks and Tenor Hill Heritage Foundation worked with the City of Falls Church and Fairfax County to create Tenor Hill, a historical park where annual events are held. Also, the Tenor Hill Monument is a part of the African American Historical Trail for the state of Virginia.
So let's bring it up to right now, today. What is going on with Tenor Hill today in terms of projects?
Okay, let's see. How can I start that off? Well,
I know we have the annual event that you do every year. Is that festival? Is that a fall festival? Or?
It's a festival that goes on during the fall of each year because of the situation that we're facing right now with this pandemic. It has altered, and so we are not able to have that right now. But the Tenor Hill Heritage Foundation built this arch on Tenor Hill, and the way that they did it by young men who were able to build the arch through the bricks and the rocks that were handed down to our families.
Wow. Wow, that makes me think of the Bible stories about the rocks in the water and the bricks that would make a memorial to the children coming across the water.
Also, the making of the monument by Dave Eckert provides a unique view of this process. Surrounding the arch are original uncut tenor quarry stones. The stones were placed to protect the arch from a collision by speeding vehicles. A plaque is placed on each stone telling the story of the civil rights struggle and who built the arch. The annual Tenor Hill Music Festival that we were talking about previously, a blues festival, celebrates and honors the African American music legacy. In conjunction with the City of Falls Church, the festival is sponsored by the Tenor Hill Heritage Foundation, established in 1997 to research, preserve, and celebrate the early civil rights history of Northern Virginia. In addition to its music, the festival, the foundation sponsors programs that resurrect the rich and vibrant past of the African American communities of Falls Church and Northern Virginia. Now, I'm not a member of the Tenor Hill Heritage Foundation, but my sister, Rebecca Stotts, is a member, and she presents to the Tenor Hill Heritage Foundation as well as to the City of Falls Church in Fairfax County the things that the Hill needs. For instance, we might need a light change for a street light. We need a fire hydrant at the bottom of the hill, which is called the cul-de-sac, and other things throughout the hill that needs things that she helps us to go to the city and the county and represent us, and we're grateful for that.
Oh, that's beautiful. Tell me a little bit, and I'm still here current today, about the community and its people and how they band together and how they help one another, especially during this season of COVID.
Okay.
Talk a little bit about
Once
that.
an all-black community is now a more diverse community. It includes families of other nationalities, businesses, and more recreational choices. These changes have increased the visibility and awareness of the Tenor Hill historical sites, with more traffic and visitors and the opportunities for others to participate and assist with preserving our history for the future, and continues to grow. With the addition now of the condos that is erected behind the arch that is erected right now, which is called 455 at Tenor Hill, which is located just behind the site of the arch that I spoke of, now has a walkway that tells the history of all the heroes with names and events that took place over the last 100 years. And those that worked diligently alongside Dr. E.B. Henderson and Joseph Tenor speak with loud voices that led to the equality and justice that is honored at this site.
Well, I have a testimony about your community.
Okay.
My family and I, we moved to the Falls Church area in 2004, but we didn't move into Falls Church. We moved from one area of Falls Church to the area that is near Tenor Hill. It wasn't Tenor Hill, but it was near Tenor Hill. And my brother, who is now deceased, was with us, but he had some problems with drugs, to be quite honest with you. And things got a little rocky to the point that one day my mom, who is now 97, she said, okay, we've got to do some tough love with him. Yeah. And so we put him out with the thought that he would straighten up, real quick, and we could bring him back in. So we did. We put him out. Everybody in the family agreed that he would just, you got to go. And I learned from friends in the area that for a couple of nights, he spent the nights in his car.
Okay.
The third night, there was a resident of Tenor Hill. I can't remember the gentleman's last name now for the life of me, but his first name was Paul.
Okay.
And he took my brother in. He took him in for a whole year.
Ooh.
And he lived there with him. I don't know what he was able to do that we weren't able to do.
Right.
But when we invited him back into the home, he was a different person. He he was a different person until he died. He ended up with cancer, and he did pass in 2014.
I'm
but
sorry to hear that,
the
yeah.
heart of that person, that I think he saw him sleeping in the car, and he approached him and brought him in to stay with him.
Good story.
And
Great
so
story.
if that is an example
Yes,
of
it
the
is.
kind of people
Yes.
that you have there to watch out for each other,
Yes.
thank you. I
Yes.
thank you.
Well, he may have met that descendant that chastised us at times.
Yeah.
And we are grateful for our descendants for watching over us
Right.
as
That's
we grew
right.
up.
That's very good. So you were saying that your sister is a part of the foundation.
Yes.
And the foundation is very active. And I'm assuming that the foundation is interracial, or is
Yes,
it
it
just
is.
oh, okay?
Yes, it
That's
is.
good.
As a matter of fact, the
That's good.
president is a lady who was Anglo-Saxon. Her name is Irene. I can't remember her last name, but she is a very lively lady, and we appreciate her for what she's doing
Right.
on that foundation.
And you mentioned a couple of businesses. I remember that when I lived in Falls Church, there was a barber shop
Yes.
around the corner
Yes.
that I used to go to.
I know what you're gonna say.
And I didn't even know that it was owned by the guy who cut my hair. I think his
Yes.
name was Smitty.
That's right. Smitty's barber.
That's Smitty's barber.
Yes.
Were there other businesses that you can talk about that were owned by African Americans? That was, I
Well,
know
that
the
was-
church, Second Baptist Church.
Yeah,
That's a landmark.
Well,
I
a
know that.
landmark that you are speaking of, a Second Baptist Church, another church in the area, Galloway United Methodist Church, and those pastors in those churches are rendering services to the people in the community. And also, of course, Smitty's Barbershop,
Right.
the place where everybody goes for a conversation, a haircut, and a grand time.
Right, that's right. You're exactly right. Now, in your opinion, how would you like for Tenor Hill to be remembered?
Boy, I tell you, that is, okay, here's something I can say. Every day I wake up and walk around the neighborhood that has been my home for 68 years.
68?
68 years.
Wow.
I thank God for his grace and his mercy.
Yeah.
As a child, and even more so now as an adult, the commitment to pray, share, and even laugh at the memories of the past, and yes, even the visions of the day and the tomorrows. To invite neighbors. We always used to have a 4th of July annual celebration. To invite neighbors and friends and to have a fun day and have peace and the joys that go along with it all. I would like nothing more than to remember what God gave to us and on the hill, and to say also that the world, it didn't give it to us, and the world can't take it away from us.
That's right.
The
Amen.
perseverance and the fight for equality, to hold on to dreams in past, present, and future. I am of the 4th generation, doing what I can to preserve the good fortune and the history of this family. My prayer is that the generations after me pick up the mantle and continue to tell the story of the Tenors that has been a blessing from the good Lord. And I say to all of my family members, hold on.
All right. I like that. George,
Yes.
if our viewers would like more information about how they can participate, volunteer,
Yes.
or things like that, what would you tell them?
I would direct them to the Tenor Hill Heritage Foundation website, which is tenorhill.org, and all the information is there. There are films, there are pictures, there's a story that I haven't yet told that's present there as well. So I would direct them to that, and I'm sure they get another showing of what I was talking about.
Okay, very good. George, thank you so much for coming. We've had a wonderful time. I wish we had more time, so you got to come back again. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for watching Rock Your Block with our special guest, George Tenor. If you would like to know more about the legacy of Tenor Hill, please log on to the website, tenorhill.org. The video is captivating and well done by Robert Burnett of GVI Productions, Washington, D.C. Please tune in next week for another great show on Rock Your Block. I'm Tia Young, your host and producer, wishing you a fantastic and safe weekend. Bye-bye.